Hello, and welcome to our audience all over the world. You are watching Onwards and Upwards, everything a global nurse needs to know to live and work in the United States. My name is Luciana Da Silva, and I'm your host. I work with Connetics USA. We are a direct hire company bringing healthcare workers from all over the world to live and work in the United States and prosper. If you would like to work as a healthcare worker in a U.S. healthcare facility, please go to our website, conneticsusa.com/apply. Fill out an application, and our recruiters will get in touch with you and start helping you with your journey to the United States. We have an amazing show for you today. We are going to be speaking about DEI, which means diversity, equity, inclusion, and we cannot forget about belonging. Let's bring in our guests today and our experts who will be speaking on this subject. We have Gary, Albert, and Christian. Welcome so much to the show, all three of you. Let's do some introductions. Christian, tell us about yourself.
Thank you so much. My name is Christian Okafor. I came from Nigeria.
Looks like Christian may be having some technical difficulties there. We'll come back to you. Jerry, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gerardo Altamirano, but if you can't roll your R's, you can call me Jerry. I'm the Workplace Diversity Manager at AMN Healthcare, and my role involves really supporting our internal DEI strategy, ensuring that we have initiatives to support a welcoming and inclusive workplace for our corporate team members, and also coordinating the employee resource groups who are so critical in creating a culture of belonging. I'm happy to be here.
Welcome. We're happy to see you as well. We also have Albert Lewis. Please tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm the Marketplace DEI leader for AMN, responsible for everything in the marketplace that would include supplier diversity and staffing of our healthcare professionals into our different clients, and then managing our client relationships and creating best practices in that area to help eliminate social determinants of health and health equity, look at disparities in the healthcare industry, working with our clients and trying to come up with better ways to manage that part of the process.
Thank you, Albert. I want to say hello to our entire audience. Please put it in the chat where you're from, your name. We love seeing people from all over the world who are watching our show. We have Merlin from saying hello from the Philippines. We also have Joy, hi from Dubai. I love how that rhymes. We got Christian back too. Christian, let's see if we can pick up where you left off there. Please introduce yourself.
Okay, sorry. Like I was
Okay.
saying, Christopher.
It looks like we may have lost Christian again. It's okay. We are live, everybody. This is what happens. We are live. We have Oso saying hello. Jennifer from Nigeria is saying hello. Daniel is saying hello from Riyadh. People from all over the world. Let's get started. So I want to start with Albert here. Basics. Okay. What is DEI? Albert, you're on mute there.
I have to put $1 in the jar. So when you think about DEI, I know my internal partner, Jerry, and I, we've worked on DEI. When you think about it from a marketplace perspective, DEI, diversity, includes a range of characteristics that make an individual or a group different from another, right? So this includes, but not limited to, race, ethnicity, gender, age, national origin, religion, disability, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, education, marital status, language, and even physical appearance. And then, so the definition of diversity also includes diversity of thought. If you have two different people in the room, they're thinking differently, So and they might have, you know, different perspectives, values. So it recognizes the individuals um, uh, in what they affiliate with on really multiple different levels um, and identities. So we're really I think diversity is probably the easiest thing that we have to achieve. But if you have two different people in the room, you have diversity. Equity is the fair treatment of and access and opportunity and advancement for all people, while at the same time striving to identify and eliminate barriers that have prevented the full participation of some groups or limited access to or distribution of resources. And then there's this there's also equality, right? I see equity as a process to achieving full equality, right? So you can't have one without the other, and one actually drives the other. And then when you think about inclusion, um, inclusion is the act of creating environments in which any individual or group can be and feel welcomed, respected, supported, and valued to fully participate. They can bring their whole selves to work. And that's the culture that we want to really create as we drive diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, advocacy into our organization, into the marketplaces, into the organizations that sit in the marketplaces. And some folks see it as society. You have, you know, you have the workforce, you have the workplace, you have the marketplace, then you have this greater piece that we refer to as society. So we're looking for, looking for ways where we can be inclusive and welcoming, and creating a welcoming climate that embraces differences and offers respect in words and actions for all people. So it's extremely important that that as we're thinking about this today and thinking together about this in the future, whatever groups you're in, I think inclusion is pretty much, in my opinion, one of the most important things that you can achieve in DEI. Because without inclusion, these people can't come to work and bring their whole selves to work. So I'll stop there.
We have so much more to cover, so please don't stop. And please don't stop putting your names and where you're from in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. Also, you have two amazing experts here to talk about this subject, so please put your questions in the chat for our experts, and we'll be happy to answer them throughout the show. Annie is saying hello from Zambia. Rona is saying howdy from Texas. Howdy. Neil is saying hello from the Philippines. Arlene, good morning, everyone. This is Arlene from Jamaica. Geneva is saying hello from the Philippines. We have people from all over the world watching and joining us today. And of course, we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, just as Albert was saying. And there's nothing more diverse than nurses from all over the world working in the United States, for sure. Jerry, tell us, why is DEI important for organizations?
Simple. You know, we DEI, the focus of DEI is about enhancing the human experience at work, right? So if you think about it pretty simply, it's how do we have a more affirming, positive, and just welcoming experience in a place where we spend so much of our time, right? I think don't quote me on this, but I believe we spent about 80,000 hours of our lives working, right? And in the past, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said, wow.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. So think about it. I mean, if we spend so much time at work, and I think historically in the past, we've sort of, I use loosely as humans, as society, we've been sort of asked to compartmentalize ourselves a little bit, to separate our personal from the professional. And I think the post-pandemic taught us that, that's not really real, right? Our outside world impacts everything and impacts who we are at work. And with sort of remote and hybrid work as well, we've introduced the workplace into the home as well. we've also understood that belonging and a sense of inclusion, a sense of connection to work really drives performance. It drives profitability. It drives retention. So simply, it matters because people matter.
And is this practice of DEI, is that a standard practice in workplaces all over the United States? How does that work exactly? And how is that trained, Albert?
I would say we would like to think it is, right? We would like to think every organization has engaged in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to some respect they have. But to be honest, there's some organizations that aren't engaging in DEI. And to Jerry's point, I mean, those folks that are not, they're missing out on profitability. They're missing out on EBITDA. Their retention is suffering, and that costs money. So DEI is something that we would expect to be utilized across the United States and even around the world. I mean, when if you look at the history of DEI, a lot of what we're doing in the United States has been informed by other countries. What we do in the United Kingdom, you think about LGBT and marriage. The first legislation that passed was in the United Kingdom, and then it came to the United States. So it's just not something that is recognized here in the United States. But we're pressing towards that mark, and certainly we want to help expedite other companies that are not engaged in diversity, equity, inclusion, but those that are really reaping the benefits simply because it does increase. There's studies that have been done where it increases revenue. It creates innovation within the organization because you have more than one culture, one person, one race, one ethnicity who's engaged in thinking together to help create innovative product, innovative solutions, innovative services that help that help drive the economy. So um, in my opinion, that it's not in every organization, but we're striving to get it there.
Jerry, what are some examples of different DEI programs that different hospitals can offer? AMN Healthcare, which Connetics is a part of AMN Healthcare, has an amazing program as well. Tell us a little bit about that and how it works, just to give our audience an idea of how a program could work, a
Sure
successful
thing.
one.
Sure. So to Al's point earlier is that, DI is contextualized differently within each setting, right? Our organizations are a reflection of our larger world. And one thing we have to center as true is that when we bring different people from different walks of life together, and when we're not sort of aware and conscious of sort of each other's journey, what's important to each other in terms of beliefs, in terms of existence and identity, then that can create conflict at times. And so, depending on what the culture is at a organization and a hospital setting and how diverse it is, there's a variety of programs that could exist, such as employee resource groups to be able to build connections amongst colleagues who share similar experiences, beliefs, and identities. I think it's also important to keep in mind the immigrant experience. While I was born in the U.S., I really identify with the immigrant experience because both of my parents and all of my siblings are from Mexico, and so when you come to the U.S. as an immigrant and sort of for the first time perhaps become racialized and identified as an other because in your home country, right, everyone looks like you, everyone speaks your language, and so then you come to the U.S. and you have this sort of awakening, this racialized experience that is new, and I think that that's an important thing to consider because in your native country you might there might be some taboos around speaking about identity, speaking about race. There's also sort of differences in cultural beliefs around, respecting people's sexual orientation and gender identity. There are nuances and complexities in how DEI and inclusion as a practice looks like in diverse countries. And then when we come to the US, the DEI context and DEI framework is really informed by our legacy of racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, all of these things that are really specific to how they've shown up and materialized in the US, right? And so depending on what is the historical legacy of exclusion in various cities or counties, it might look different. Also, depending on how diverse the population is, what sort of practices, what's the culture, how we sort of measure culture and inclusion, it also will prompt different sorts of activities and DEI initiatives, whether it's sort of diverse recruiting efforts, again, employee resource groups and belonging efforts, celebrating diversity and creating awareness, because that's what we want. We want to celebrate each other's culture. We want to sort of embrace identity, embrace our differences so that we can innovate, so that we can take better care of each other, and so that we can really practice sort of this oneness as a humanity where we see beyond our differences. But before we see beyond, we have to actually see how we are different and how we might how some folks might be excluded from the table. And so the DI practices are really aimed to ensure that everybody has a seat at the table and a voice to be heard.
The United States is known as the melting pot of the world. There's everything here, everyone from all over the world, different colors, races, my goodness, there's so many different things. We actually have a graphic that shows exactly what diversity is and everything that is involved in diversity. Albert, tell us about why is it important in terms of the hiring process and employment practice for foreign nurses to make sure that they're hired fair, transparent, free of discrimination on all of those levels that we just saw in that graphic?
Sorry about that. So when you think about hiring practice or recruiting practices, I manage the healthcare professional staffing for AMN that goes into our different clients. We're focused on creating a diverse pool of people. It's important because you want your organization, you want your recruiting practices to look like the communities and the society that people are pulled from. It creates a better connection. Do you think about a nurse, right? A nurse that is, let's say, in Alabama, right? And that nurse has a patient, and if that nurse doesn't know anything, and this is just wild to think about, anything about biases, anything about microaggressions, anything that might create tension between him or her, or that person and that patient, it's quite possible that there could be tension there, right? So when you're hiring, or when you're recruiting candidates for for your staffing efforts, you want to think in terms of, am I creating a pool of people to pull from and present to our clients, or present to the panel of folks that would be considering the hiring? You want to make sure that you have created a diverse slate so that you eventually end up with a community of people inside your organization that looks like the folks that are in the marketplace community. So and it also considers fairness. It considers transparency. When you hire with a diverse lens, you're actually doing some very important things. You're eliminating labels, right? If you see a person, that person's more than what you see, right? You want to recognize the skill set that they have. You want to recognize the value that they can bring to the organization, the level of performance that they can bring into the organization that could really create a competitive advantage for your company. So when you're hiring, you're bringing people in, you're creating this culture where everyone can actually work together and socialize together. So there's two important things here. You want your organization to look like the community that you're pulling people from, and you want to create relationships with those folks so that they can all bring their whole selves to work and be productive and help to drive the business of the organization. So um, uh, I'll stop there.
Well, we're actually getting a question here in the chat from Louise, who is asking it. Oh, we get this all the time. Is there an age limit to work in the United States? Oh, we have Christian back here. We'll get to you in just a moment. Jerry, is there an age limit? And how does that work?
Yes, there are age limits in the US. Thankfully, we have employment laws that help protect uh, from exploitative child labor. And so there is an age limit. Um, while, while it is important to recognize that the way in which we care about people in our healthcare settings, our nurses are our backbones, right? Because they're able to interact directly with diverse groups, diverse patients who have different needs. And so, as we think about when is the right time to sort of, at what age do you want to sort of start on your journey to come to the US? I think any age is as long as you're still around and have a heartbeat and living, you can make a difference here. So definitely welcome nurses who are interested in working in the US to do the research and to come on, because this is a welcoming place for everyone.
So the only age limitation is that you cannot be too young. There's no
Correct.
such thing as too old. Okay. It's like against the law. Gender also cannot be, you cannot hire based on that either. So those are systems that are put into place in general in the United States that try to stay away from that discrimination there. Christian, we have you back. Welcome back. Let's get to tell us about your journey to the United States. Why did you decide to come to the United States and be a nurse? He's doing the freeze. I like that a lot. Well, I tell you what, we have some people in the chat saying hello. Mimi is saying hello from Ghana. We have Terry who is saying hello from Alabama. My goodness, you were just mentioning Alabama, and there it is. Let's go back to what you were saying earlier, Albert, about making sure that nurses feel like they have a place in the workforce, in their healthcare facility. From a nurse's point of view, what do you see hospitals doing to make sure that the nurses are integrated into the workplace culture? And how do they usually work in those trainings and those different systems that the hospitals have set up to integrate?
You know, I was just in a meeting yesterday with Kaiser Permanente, and their workforce, their nurses are extremely important to them. They're looking at every possible um, perspective that a person could take, or they're considering it as their main. I don't want to use the word maintaining, managing their workforce. But you said something. One of the most critical things that um, a hospital system or a hospital can do is train. And we spent a lot of time talking about training yesterday because they're very interested in what we're doing as it relates to helping them to diversify their workforce as we place folks within their organizations. We spent a little time talking about that, and what really caught my attention was that is something that is critically important to them, and that is the training and the awareness that we're attempting to sort of breed in our staffing. Before folks go into our clients, we want to make sure they've been through certain classes and training. And Jerry and I have been talking about that as well, trying to connect the dots between what he's doing internally, what I'm doing externally, and making sure that um, we're sort of doing the same thing, right? So what nurses need, in my opinion, is not just what they get from the textbooks and what they get uh, from from their um, from their education regarding whatever their nursing and specialties are, but I think um, this 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 relationship piece with with their peers at work and with the patients, and understanding how to communicate, right? Communication is extremely important because there are some pretty tough um, conversations that can take place if you have a person that's sick, sitting in the sitting in the in the in the patient room, and then how to care for that person, right? Patient care is extremely important, and every hospital is extremely concerned about that. How you treat that person, you and it's regardless of of the gender, regardless of the race, regardless of the ethnicity. Here's the thing, here's the bottom line for everybody that comes into a hospital. Everybody is human. Everybody is a person. And we have to be able to treat those people like they're a person, like they're your mother, like they're your father. I think relationships, communication, DEI training, understanding the sensitivity of what that person is feeling like as they come in to the hospital, because coming into the hospital, first of all, is extremely unnerving, right? Especially if you're sick. So then that kind of moves up the Richter on that communication, on that relationship. So when you think about what I'm promoting in the marketplace, it is about how you treat human beings. It is how you perceive that human being. It is, watch this, is also how you receive that person. So when I really do a real granular look at what Jerry and I do, it is about relationships. It is about communication and how well we effectively do that. I've seen the worst and probably some of the best um, um, outcomes as it relates to these interpersonal relationships that you create in DEI. I've seen people feel like they're outed, right? As Jerry used the technical term, you're considered the other, right? And why would you want someone to feel like the other, right? When we're all in the human race together, we're not measured by by the color of our skin, right? But and I'll quote someone, but as the content of your character. So when we think in terms of what we're trying to drive, right, with nurses, nurses are on the front line. Nurses have to have a sensitivity to people, and when you think about the LGBTQIA plus folks, those folks have been in some cases excommunicated simply because of their choice. And everybody makes choices, everyone, right? And if it's a choice that's going to create an out for you, then that's a shame, because what they've chosen in their life, right, is what makes them comfortable, and it doesn't matter, because they're still a human being, and they need to be treated as such. So again, I can run on and on and on, but I'm gonna stop there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And I love that you quoted Martin Luther King there. My four children will not be judged by the color of their skin, but the content of their character. And that is so important. It doesn't matter in the United States if you're rich or old or young or poor, able, disabled, gay, straight, you can make it. You can make it in this country, because we do have these systems set up just for you, I want to take a look at the Connetics USA Success Path. Let's get an idea of the journey that nurses do have when coming to the United States. So the first thing you're going to do is pass that NCLEX exam. Then you're going to apply to Connetics USA. You'll be working with one of our recruiters who are going to be supporting you through your interview. We'll also then get you placed with a wonderful healthcare facility here in the United States. Then comes your immigration. We will help support you and your family through the entire immigration process. We're talking green cards, EB3, permanent residency, green cards for you and your family. And our team is there to support you. From there, we're going to help you with the onboarding process, getting you ready to come to the United States, everything that you need in order to be successful. And once you arrive, you're going to get training, clinical training, and all of what we're talking about today, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is part of that training because it is so important. And of course, if you want to be a nurse in the United States and go through that journey that I just showed you and more, please apply on our website, conneticsusa.com/apply. Let's achieve your American dream. I want to get back to Jerry here. In what ways can employees play an active role in diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we often consider DEI as these big, large initiatives that are led top down by leaders or by the organization, but it could also be at the individual level, ensuring that someone feels welcomed and connected and affirmed here. I think about if you can sort of walk down memory lane for me and go back to 13-year-old, your younger self, when you're sort of entering maybe school for the first time or a cafeteria for the first time, and just wanting to belong, right? And hoping that someone will invite you to sit at the table with them, to have lunch, to share a cup of coffee. And that's what colleagues can do at the individual level, is just extending a hand and then offering a connection opportunity to welcome someone that already feels perhaps like they're the only one, or perhaps still navigating and wanting to understand the culture and wanting to belong. And so from a employee level, that's what we can do is just, ask someone about them, learn about their story. As humans, we want to tell our story. And the three things that matter most is, do you hear me? Do you see me? And does what I say matter?
And what about, why is it important for nurses to bring up diversity, equity, inclusion in the workplace to their peers, to speak up? Because a lot of nurses all over the world, it's cultural, right? That you don't speak up, you don't speak your mind, you don't give out red flags. Why is that important? And what's the best way to deal with that, Jerry?
Well, think about all it took to get here, right? What you had to do. You just outlined our beautiful streamlined process, which AMN Healthcare is so fantastic because they really hold your hand through it, right? They sort of from everything from application to helping you integrate and become familiar with the culture and the customs here. There's a long process, but why it's important is because we want folks to stay. We want to bring. Like you mentioned earlier, the U.S. is a diverse melting pot. We recognize in our heart and our spirit of the country is centered around opportunity and ensuring that people have access to achieve their dreams, whatever that may be. And when folks come to the U.S., right, it can be sometimes turbulent. We have to be honest, and it can feel isolating sometimes, and it can feel lonely, especially if you're placed perhaps in a hospital setting, in a county, in a city, in a state where there's not folks that look like you, let alone speak your language, or let alone sort of share your beliefs and practices. And so why it's important for colleagues and for organizations to really foster a sense of connection is because we want people to thrive and feel like they can see themselves succeeding there. For the nurses that come to the U.S. wanting to provide the best care possible, wanting to see themselves succeed within the organization, and stay and bring their families. But in order to do that, we have to feel happy and content, and like we can thrive there. And that really comes down to our personal connections and relationships with one another, not just the work, right? Our patients is one thing, and nurses are so fantastic because they really provide such great care, but they're also human, right? So it's important because we want folks to stay, we want folks to be happy, and we want folks to succeed.
You said it so well, Albert. Let's say I'm going to give an example here. Okay, just an example. So let's say we have an international nurse who is working in a U.S. healthcare facility, and they feel like they are being discriminated against. Many nurses may not say a word. They're scared about their job. They're scared about, oh my gosh, everybody's going to be against me. I'm that person that's, whistle blowing. Albert, what is the best way to raise that red flag? Who do you go to? What do you say? How do you make sure that you do not continue to become a victim of this?
That's a very, very good question. You ask, um, Jerry, about peers in the organization, and he gave us a very good answer. And one of the things that I would um, suggest to nurses who are coming over, there's a thing called allyship, right? You need to create your allies within the organization that you're going to, and they should be reaching out to you as well. Allyship is extremely powerful, right? You create, there's the mentor ally, there's the peer ally, and the best thing for this person to do if they're feeling that way, right, is to say something, right? You say something to your ally, you say something to your HR representative, because it's if you don't say anything, that's really the worst thing to do, because saying something is like not saying something is like condoning it, right? And then people feel the freedom to continue to treat you the way that they want to treat you, right? There's an old saying, and it's slightly off a little bit. You want to treat somebody like you want to be treated, and in DEI that's not true. You want to treat that person like they want to be treated, right? Because everybody literally has a way that they want to be treated. If you're coming from another country, you're from a different culture. There's different customs. There are things that person literally is accustomed to, and we want to recognize that. So if a person is uncomfortable in their work setting, they really should talk to their HR representative, but they should also have allies in the organization who they can reach out to, who they can talk to, and maybe sometimes it's just a difference in custom, and no one really means any harm. There's a certain there's a thing called microaggressions, and sometimes microaggressions are unintentional, right? And that person doesn't mean anything by what they're saying. They're just doing something that's normal to them, but not to the person that's being offended or being made to feel uncomfortable. So um, I would really lean on that when they come into the country. They should truly try and reach out and create allies, so they have a person, they have a circle of friends that they can connect with. That's extremely important in the workplace. I think Jerry gave some astronomical number, 80,000. Did you say 80,000 hours of time that a person spends at work? And to spend that amount of time at work is huge, and to try and treat that like that's not a part of your life, it would be crazy. So as knowing that it's a huge part of your life, you need to have folks that you can reach out to while you're at work, and in this case, for underrepresented members or folks who are visiting our country or just moving into our country, having a friend, having an ally within the organization is extremely important. So that's what I would suggest.
When you do report these things, is it kept confidential or does everybody find out, Jerry?
Absolutely, it's confidential. Depending on which organization you work for, there's different systems and mechanisms for reporting um, potential or perceived exclusion or discrimination. Right. I think the wonderful thing about AMN Healthcare is that we also have our clinical managers that can help you sort of talk through some of these things before perhaps you're ready to formally report any sort of grievance within your organization, because I can understand how scary that might be, especially if you want to really be welcomed and affirmed by the hospital you work at. So there's several resources you can tap into. I think another thing to consider is how we are perceiving interactions, right? Whether they're the intention is to be exclusionary or not. And when we are hoping to address a potential issue, what considering what is the resolution here? Is it perhaps to be more included, to have training and education to help folks be more sort of sensitive and conscientious of different beliefs and customs, and how our words have weight and that they might hurt? Or what would you like to sort of be the resolution? I think that's an important thing to consider, because we often don't think about that, and oftentimes people are hoping that through telling someone that things will immediately change, and oftentimes that happens, especially if the hospital you work for has the resources and the sort of DI education programs and whatnot. But often it doesn't. So I know that it could be a scary path to navigate, but luckily there's resources you can tap, whether it's within AMN Healthcare or within the hospital setting you work at.
Albert, you mentioned allies, making friends, having people that you can speak to. What if you are a nurse and you want to support others? People are coming to you and sharing this information. How, as a leader, can you support your colleagues, your nurses that are maybe dealing with that, and come to you and say, "Hey, I need your help"?
Yeah, as a leader, that's a good question. And I say this very carefully, that everybody is not a leader. So let me start there. There are folks who manage systems well, or they manage processes, and sometimes in an organization, if they do that really well, then they get promoted to a leader. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean you're a leader. A leader needs to um, uh, have the ability to influence, inspire, motivate, give purpose and meaning, right? And that's, as a leader, when you're talking to your associates, the folks that work with you, or the folks that work around you, you want to be very, conscious of that, right? So how you treat a person, yeah, words are important. Words can help a person thrive, or words can kill. So as you're communicating with folks within your organization, and understanding that we're becoming more diverse, you have to be very careful about how you're having these communications, and keep in mind that um, your words mean something to people, right? So you have to be conscious about that. The words that you speak, the labels that you put on people, the labels that you recognize, and here's what's important. You have to be able to get beyond what you see, right? If you see my dark skin, you have to be able to get beyond the dark skin, and then communicate with the person that's in me, or who I represent. And it takes a special skill set in order to really get there, to really understand um, that you're relating with this person, and that this person literally is probably hinging on every word that you say. So leaders who have that quality are folks who can really increase retention, increase innovation, increase this person's ability to bring their whole self to work, and we have to be aware of that, right? So giving that kind of awareness within the organization. Again, I go back to training. You can never do enough training in communication. in change management, helping people to understand that as the organization changes, what are you doing to help move with that change? And are you communicating those things that represent the your organization well? Especially if that's an organization that's really driving diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and advocacy. Are you portraying that? So um, this this communication with the folks within the organization, in my opinion, really becomes one of the top three things that an organization can do to help their employees thrive. Because when you think about an organization within a society, is we want that organization to thrive. We want our communities and our and the folks within the community to thrive.
Yeah.
So I really believe that in in light of that, we have to take this leadership role more and more important, more than just thinking that you're demanding people to do things. You have to really rely on more of influence, more about giving purpose and meaning to what that person is doing at work, and then help them bring their whole self to work.
We're getting a few questions here in the chat about this topic. Merlin is asking, does AMN Healthcare stay connected with the direct hire nurses after their deployment in their respected hospitals? What activities do you organize for them? So for direct hire, Connetics USA is part of AMN Healthcare. We actually have a circle of support. And what this is that once you arrive in the United States, you're not alone. You are not alone. We stay with you for at least 6 months. And then so many of our nurses become part of our angel network to help other nurses who are arriving. We put you together with buddies, perhaps from your same country and in your same healthcare facility, to help you make friends, to help you get integrated. We also have, of course, our clinical transitional modules. We have community liaisons that we put you together with, people that have been working there, people that are part of that community, so that they can also show you the different resources that you can have within that city. We also do regular check-ins. We put you together with different organizations within your city that you can also be a part of, that can make you feel more connected with everyone else. So we do not leave you alone. Okay, you are completely supported from the beginning all the way through your entire journey here. And Merlin is now giving us a heart, so that's wonderful. Now, whenever it comes to circles of support, like we just showed, Jerry, what do you think are the most important pieces of that nurses should really, really take advantage of when they arrive?
Sure. I think about our hierarchy of needs as humans, right? And while the great parts around DI are in terms of like celebration of cultural holidays and things like that are fantastic, there are more simple and immediate concerns that nurses might have, especially if you're coming with your family, or you're wanting to become sort of familiarized with the area. Everything from, what's a good childcare facility? Where can we find restaurants or supermarkets that have the sort of cultural foods that we are accustomed to and really love. So I think the best sort of support networks are folks who have been here, who share perhaps your background, your experience as coming in as an international nurse, that you could ask for support. Whether it's those employee resource groups, our clinical managers and the Connetics USA team who have fantastic resources, or folks in the local community, right? We have to sort of think about the microcosms, and the organization is one thing, and then you zoom out a little bit, and there might be sort of a cultural center that you can align to, that or a religious or a belief center that aligns with your values and your ideas around the metaphysical. And so you might tap those areas of support as well, because it's one thing to feel supported at work, but it's also another thing to feel supported in your community where you live, where your kids go to school. So tapping those networks of folks who have been here, who have shared a sort of a similar experience of becoming an international nurse, I think are your first points of contact for sure. So those buddies, I would say those buddies are ones.
We love the buddies. And I tell you what, we get photos all the time from our nurses. And they are all, you were talking about the cafeteria table. They're all sitting at cafeteria tables, enjoying conversations, enjoying their life. They all have so much in common. And Albert, just really quickly, we're kind of wrapping up here, but we were talking about how Connetics can help support nurses in order to get them settled here and how nurses can support other nurses. How do you see the hospitals collaborating with the local communities when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Well, again, I recently started having meetings with our clients. I know that um, most of our clients, maybe all of them, they all have um, different consortiums that they where they meet and greet and talk about, what are the social determinants of health that we can help with within the communities? What are the disparities that we need to be focused on? How do we improve health equity? So these hospitals aren't working independent of one another. They come together, they share ideas, and they think together about how they can be more effective in their efforts to help the folks that are in the communities where they live. And these are not just small meetings, right? There's one organization that has 70 hospital systems in it where they all come together and they share ideas and they create best practices, because this is not something that can be done, you know, in a corner or privately. The issues that we face, the issues that, even international nurses face as they come into the communities, they're literally addressed in these consortiums where the hospital systems are thinking together about how do we solve these problems. And even, even some of the things that are still considered blue sky issues, that wow, this is so big, how do we handle it? It's more about how do we, you know take bites out of the apple in order to make folks feel comfortable, in order to make sure that people are being cared for, that we're meeting people where they are in their communities and helping to address those issues. So that's one of the things that I know hospital systems and hospitals are doing. They have these consortiums, they come together, they share ideas, and they really learn from one another.
That diversity, learning from one another, and then the world becomes a better place all together. Jerry, I want to get to some final advice here. What is your advice for international nurses who are working in the United States and maybe dealing with some diversity, inclusion issues, or for nurses also who are planning to immigrate to the United States and maybe are fearful of dealing with that whenever they start working here? What is your advice?
Absolutely. First and foremost, I would say that if you yourself are navigating perhaps a DI issue in your organization, the chances are that you're not the only one. Okay. So rest assured and let that sort of ease your fear that others are experiencing likely what you are. And if that's the case, then it becomes a sort of a larger problem that hospitals want to resolve, right? They've invested resources in training and hiring, that they want you to be happy and they want you to succeed there, right? And so my advice would be to speak up. If you see something, say something, right? And you might feel hesitant to, because you might think that, well, is this am I misperceiving something? Is this something that's only happening to me? But it may not be. And so while our our journey sometimes includes paths that have barriers and that are rocky, if you think about our purpose, and what I love so much about nurses is that they're so altruistic and giving of themselves to others, and sort of have the servant leadership mentality to really provide care for others. And so keeping with that same spirit and that same sort of, I care. Why'd you get into the field? To care for others, to support others. The same thing with DI. We're all here to make the world a little bit better, to leave it better than we found it, right? So by you sharing and speaking up, you're creating the space for others who come after you to enter the facility, to enter the hospital, without experiencing those same DEI issues that you may have as well. So speak up, find your allies and your resources, and don't be afraid, because the hospitals want you there. They want you to succeed, and they want to know what you're feeling and what you're thinking so they can resolve it.
Albert, do you have anything else to add on that wonderful piece of final advice for our international nurses?
I think the thing that I would want the international nurses to leave with is to know that you have DEI folks here who are here to support that are really cultivating the ground to make sure that the life that you spend here and others who are underrepresented members or maybe marginalized have a place and can truly come in and bring their whole self to work. A message that I like to give folks is we know that diversity happens, it just exists, but inclusion is intentional, and we are truly thinking about how to be more intentional and make and helping folks feel like they're included. And so with that in mind, we want you to come in and know that you feel welcome, know that that you're valued, and we want you to know that you're respected. And I want to repeat something Jerry said, and that is, if you see something, say something, and know that you'll be supported. Have that confidence, and I'm saying that not lightly. um you have to come in, and there's a saying in my church. It says, know that you know that you know. You have to really know and believe that you have supporters and people that believe in you and that want to see you succeed. And that is our mission, to make sure that everybody that comes into the workplace, into the workforce, that they have an opportunity to exceed, that they have an opportunity to move up in the organization or do whatever their mission is in life. And so we want to make sure that you are comfortable doing that, and that you can, again, bring your whole self to work.
Thank you so much, Albert and Jerry. What an amazing conversation we've had today. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Of course, if you want to apply to become a nurse in the United States, ConneticsUSA.com/apply and start your American dream. Thank you again to our panelists, Jerry and Albert. We'll definitely have you back on the show sometime soon, and we'll try to get Christian back as well on a show in the future. Speaking of shows, we do have our future show schedule of all of the shows that we have coming up here. Here are Onwards and Upwards. Next week, we'll be speaking about career progression, how to progress in your career. And we'll also have some nurses speaking about some examples of how they progressed when they arrived in the United States and throughout their careers. I did see some questions about the visa bulletin. We will have our partner immigration lawyers live on August the 11th for a Q&A. They'll be taking your questions live. So please be sure to tune in on August the 18th, Connetics Career Day, like speed dating for a job. We have several clients that are going to be joining this show, telling you about their facility, and then you can make a decision on where you want to be and who you want to work with. August the 25th, stateside, we had several requests to focus on the northeastern part of the United States and jobs up in the Northeast. So we listened, and here it is, August the 25th. And August the 8th, our LaFora talk show. You never want to miss it. We'll be speaking clinical about working alongside preceptors. Don't miss the Connetics College every Monday. These are free classes for you to help you pass your NCLEX exam, your English exams, the OET, the PTE, the IELTS. We do a free class for you every Monday. Our wonderful partners, Aspire RN, Swoosh, Niner, and iPass, here to help you and answer your questions as well, to help you be successful, pass those exams, and start your journey here in the United States. Thank you so much for joining us again. We'll see you next week. And like we always say, onwards and upwards. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.